Have you ever stopped to think about the impact that seemingly small decisions can have on an entire life, or even on the fate of humanity? The story of Isaac and Jacob, recorded for millennia in the Bible, is more than an account of ancient events. It's a mirror reflecting our daily struggles, our choices, our mistakes, and above all, God's grace. And the most fascinating part? This narrative is full of twists that, at first glance, seem disastrous but ultimately reveal a grander, more glorious plan than any human mind could conceive. Many know the isolated stories, the sacrifice of Isaac, Jacob's deception, the rivalry with Esau. But few connect the dots to see how these events are part of something much bigger, a divine plan that shaped not only one family but the destiny of all humanity. It's about blessings gained in unexpected ways, curses that are redeemed, and how God can use even our worst mistakes to fulfill His promises. Perhaps you're going through a moment in life where everything feels confusing, purposeless, or unsolvable. This story can change how you view those moments. Because just like Isaac and Jacob, we are imperfect, full of flaws and doubts. Yet God not only chooses us but transforms us, writes new chapters in our lives, and calls us to something far greater than ourselves. And you know what makes this even more fascinating? This isn't just a story about the past. It's a narrative that resonates in our days, offering practical and profound lessons on faith, redemption, and purpose. Get ready to be surprised by every detail, every turn of this journey, and discover how it can transform your own walk. Let's uncover together the true story of Isaac and Jacob, and perhaps find something new about you in the process. From the dawn of time, humanity has sought answers to its greatest questions. When we look at the story of Abraham and the promise God made to him, we see more than a covenant. We see a legacy that echoes to this day. Isaac and Jacob inherited this promise, but like any good story, the path was neither straightforward nor easy. Imagine being chosen by God, bearing the weight of such a great covenant, knowing that your actions would shape the destiny of future generations. It requires faith, responsibility, and above all, a clear sense of purpose. Isaac, the son of the promise, is more than a name in the Bible. He symbolizes the continuation of a divine plan, even when human eyes cannot see the end of the road. Remember how he embraced his role with serenity, trusting God even in the most adverse situations. Think about it. How many times have you felt small in the face of something bigger than you? If Isaac teaches us anything, it's that trusting in God can turn any challenge into an opportunity. Now, consider Jacob, a man who began his journey as a deceiver but carried within him the potential for something much greater. He reminds us that God doesn't choose perfect people, but those who can be molded. And that's a powerful lesson because who among us is without flaws? Jacob proved that even in imperfection, divine purpose can prevail. It's like that friend who started from nothing but built something incredible through faith and perseverance. The connection between Isaac and Jacob reveals how God works through generations. The promise made to Abraham did not stop with Isaac. It expanded with Jacob and became the foundation for something much greater. It's a reminder that God's blessings are never limited to one person. They are a continuous flow, reaching everyone around. This leads us to a practical reflection. How are we passing on the legacy we've received? It could be in raising our children, the impact we have at work, or the friendships we cultivate. But make no mistake, Isaac and Jacob's journey was not without flaws. Isaac faced doubts, and Jacob had to deal with the consequences of his actions. This shows us that God's promises don't depend on our perfection, but on our willingness to move forward. Think about how liberating this is, knowing it's not about what you've done in the past, but about who you choose to become now. This is one of the Bible's greatest messages of hope. This story is also an invitation. When we read about Isaac digging wells or Jacob building an altar, we realize that each of their actions was an act of faith. And faith is like a muscle, it needs exercise. Ask yourself, what wells do you need to dig today? What altars do you need to build to honor God? It's in these moments that God's promise manifests most powerfully. And like any great story, this one leaves us with a sense of anticipation. If Isaac and Jacob inherited the promise and were key players in the divine plan, what comes next? This is a reflection that prepares us for the next chapters of this fascinating narrative, where faith will be tested, but God's plan remains unshakable. Faith is like a lighthouse in the middle of a storm. In the story of Isaac and Rebekah, we clearly see how challenges are not obstacles but tools to strengthen trust in God. Imagine being Rebekah, dealing with the anguish of infertility while carrying the divine promise. This is the kind of situation that tests even the firmest hearts. Yet, through prayer and perseverance, she witnessed the miracle of her children's birth, a living proof that God never forgets his promises, even when the winds seem contrary. The near sacrifice of Isaac by Abraham is one of the most iconic stories of faith being challenged. Put yourself in Isaac's shoes, walking alongside his father, unaware of what awaited him. This act of blind trust is a reminder that faith often requires us to set aside logic and surrender to God's plan. Have you ever faced a moment in life where trusting the outcome seemed impossible? It's in these moments that God asks us to keep walking, even when we don't see the ram ahead. The faith challenges faced by Isaac and Rebekah show us that God operates on his timeline, not ours. How many times have you prayed for something and felt unheard? Rebekah waited years for children, but her persistence was rewarded. In practice, this teaches us to cultivate patience and gratitude even as we wait. A good exercise is keeping a prayer journal, noting each request and answer received, so we can see how God works over time. Isaac and Rebekah's marriage is also a testimony to how God acts in the union of two lives. When Abraham's servant prayed for a sign to find Isaac's wife, God responded clearly. This reminds us that we are not alone in our choices. Whether dealing with major life decisions or small daily doubts, it's a good habit to begin each choice with prayer, asking for divine wisdom and guidance. After all, if God guided a servant's steps to find Rebekah, he can surely guide ours. Another striking point is how Isaac, even facing conflicts with the Philistines, remained peaceful and confident in God's providence. When prevented from using the wells he dug, he simply moved to another place and kept working. This teaches us to handle rejections and obstacles without losing peace. Think about how you can apply this. Instead of insisting on something that isn't flowing, seek another direction, trusting that God has something better in store. However, faith challenges don't end only in victories. They also shape our character. Isaac, for example, learned to trust God not only in moments of blessing, but also in times of scarcity and tension. This shows us that every difficulty is an opportunity for growth. It's like a plant that, facing strong winds, grows deeper roots. So ask yourself, how can I use this difficult moment to strengthen my faith? As we follow this story, we realize that the challenges faced by Isaac and Rebekah were not just personal but part of something greater. They paved the way for the next generation, proving that even in struggles, God is always present. And so the narrative turns to their children, where new battles and lessons will emerge, filled with tensions and unexpected twists. The relationship between siblings has always been fertile ground for stories of rivalry, and Jacob and Esau were no exception. From Rebekah's womb, they were already struggling, showing that this conflict was not merely human but also a reflection of divine choices. Imagine being Rebekah, feeling this turmoil and hearing from God that the older will serve the younger. This declaration not only shaped the brothers' futures, but also challenged the social norms of the time, where the firstborn always took precedence. It was as if God was already signaling that his plan transcends human expectations. The selling of the birthright is one of the most intriguing moments of this story. Esau, impulsive and starving, trades his blessing for a bowl of lentils, a stark reminder of how immediate decisions can have eternal consequences. How often do we trade something valuable for temporary satisfaction? Think about it. Maybe it's time with family sacrificed for excessive work or health exchanged for bad habits. Esau's story teaches us to value what truly matters before it's too late. Jacob, with his mother's help, deceives Isaac to receive the blessing intended for Esau. Despite the questionable act, we see the fulfillment of God's plan, showing that he can use even our flaws to achieve his purposes. This doesn't excuse our mistakes but reminds us that God sees beyond the moment and works with who we are. It's like a boss who manages to turn a disastrous situation into something productive because they see potential where others only see problems. Jacob's flight after Esau's fury is another pivotal point. Imagine the tension of leaving home, abandoning the safety of family, to face an uncertain future. This flight reminds us that the consequences of our actions often lead us to difficult paths, but those same paths can be used by God to shape us. Jacob, even while fleeing, was stepping into a transformation process that would change his life forever. Eventually, the reunion of the brothers, years later, is one of the Bible's most emotional scenes. Esau, instead of seeking revenge, surprises Jacob with an embrace. This moment is a powerful example of forgiveness and reconciliation, something that seems so distant in a world where people hold grudges for so long. Think of someone you need to forgive or reconcile with. That gesture, no matter how difficult, can be liberating for both you and the other person. This rivalry between Jacob and Esau also reflects the tension between human choices and divine plans. Although Esau was the firstborn, God chose Jacob, reminding us that his decisions don't follow our criteria. This leads us to trust more in what God plans than in what we consider logical or fair. After all, how many times have you thought something didn't make sense, only to realize in the end that it was for the best? As the story unfolds, we see that this rivalry, though intense, was only the beginning of a maturation process for both. And like any good story, God not only closes one chapter but prepares the next. Jacob's journey is far from over, and the challenges he will face will reveal even more about the impact of the divine plan on his life. Jacob is a living example of how God works in the human heart, transforming weaknesses into strength and chaos into purpose. From the beginning, he carried the weight of being chosen, but like many of us, he had to undergo a refining process. A pivotal moment in this journey was the dream of the ladder, where angels ascended and descended between heaven and earth. Imagine the scene. Alone fleeing home, Jacob encounters God's presence in an unlikely place. It's as if heaven itself was saying, "I am with you even here." This encounter teaches us that in our loneliest moments, God may be preparing a new beginning. Throughout his journey, Jacob faced trials that shaped his character. Working for years under Laban, enduring deception and challenges, was more than a life experience. It was divine training. How often have you faced situations that seemed unfair but ultimately made you stronger? Think about it. Difficult moments may be God's tools for crafting something extraordinary in you. Like Jacob, we need to trust the process, even when it feels drawn out. One of the most iconic moments of Jacob's life is his wrestling with the angel. In that struggle, he not only confronted God but also himself. It was a battle for identity, where Jacob ceased to be known as a deceiver and became Israel, one who wrestles with God. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes we must confront our weaknesses to become who God has called us to be. Consider something in your life that needs transformation. This may be your moment to wrestle and not let go until you receive your blessing. Another transformative point was Jacob's reconciliation with Esau. Before that, Jacob spent a night in prayer and divided his group into two, fearing what might happen. But instead of revenge, he found forgiveness. This act not only changed their relationship, but also proved that God can restore even the most broken bonds. If you have unresolved conflicts, perhaps it's time to ask for God's guidance and seek reconciliation. Jacob shows us that the courage to face these moments can open doors to new beginnings. The formation of the 12 tribes of Israel is another fruit of God's work in Jacob's life. Each son represented not only a physical heritage but a greater spiritual purpose. It's fascinating to see how God uses even complicated family dynamics to fulfill his plans. Think about your own family. How can you be a channel of blessing for future generations? Perhaps it's through your words, actions, or even the example of faith you leave behind. Jacob also teaches us that moments of encountering God are fundamental. At Bethel, he raised an altar to remember God's promise. These spiritual milestones help us stay focused, especially when challenges arise. Why not create your own altars? It could be a prayer space at home, a verse on the mirror, or a journal where you record God's answers. Small gestures like these strengthen faith and remind us that God is in control. Finally, Jacob's story prepares us for something greater. Every dream, struggle, and blessing in his life points to a divine plan that goes beyond him. God was laying the foundation for something eternal, a promise that would not end with Israel but would reach all humanity. And so the narrative continues, leading us to the next chapter, where this divine plan is revealed even more gloriously. The story of Isaac, Jacob, and their generations is not just about people. It's a glimpse into God's eternal plan that transcends time and space. From the covenant with Abraham, God was preparing the way for something far greater, the redemption of humanity through Christ. It's as if every event, every challenge, and every blessing were pieces of a massive puzzle, revealing an image of hope for us all. Looking at these stories, we understand that God's promises never fail, even when the road seems uncertain. The moments when God intervenes in Isaac and Jacob's lives show that the promise of redemption was already unfolding, even in the smallest details. Isaac's interrupted sacrifice, for example, reflects the sacrifice that would come through Christ. It's impossible not to draw the connection. Just as the ram replaced Isaac, Christ became the perfect sacrifice for us. This truth invites us to reflect on God's unconditional love and how he continues to offer this redemption to each of us today. Jacob, transformed into Israel, laid the foundation for the 12 tribes, which would later form the nation from which the Messiah would come. This direct line from Jacob to Christ reminds us that God uses the unlikely to accomplish the impossible. Think about it. Perhaps you can't see now how your faith and choices will make an impact, but God is weaving something greater than you can imagine. This challenges us to live with purpose, knowing that even our smallest decisions can play a role in an eternal plan. The promise of blessing to all nations, made to Abraham and passed to Isaac and Jacob, finds its ultimate fulfillment in Christ. He is the descendant who brought salvation to the world, breaking the barriers of sin and death. This is a message that transcends cultures, times, and circumstances. Today, as we embrace this promise, we can become channels of that blessing for others. It might be through simple acts like helping a friend in need or larger gestures like sharing this message of hope with those who are searching for it. The struggles and reconciliations of Jacob and Esau also point us to the gospel. Just as Esau forgave Jacob, God offers us unconditional forgiveness through Christ. It's an opportunity to rethink our relationships and seek peace, not only with others but also with ourselves and with God. Imagine the impact this kind of reconciliation can have on your life and the lives of those around you. Forgiveness is a transformative act that reflects God's heart. By connecting the story of Isaac and Jacob to the coming of Christ, we see that God's plan has always had a global reach. It is not limited to a specific time or people, it is a promise for everyone. This truth challenges us to live with a broader perspective, remembering that our faith is not just about us but about the impact we can have on the world. It might be in your community, your workplace, or even on social media. Wherever you are, you can be an extension of this divine promise. And so the story of Isaac and Jacob brings us to a climactic point, where all the pieces come together to reveal God's redemptive work. Every challenge, every blessing, and every transformation points to Christ, the ultimate fulfillment of all promises. But instead of ending here, the narrative invites us to continue exploring how this redemption impacts not only the past but also our present and future. So, what are you going to do with everything you've just learned? The story of Isaac and Jacob is not just a fascinating tale, it's a call to action. It's an invitation to reflect on your choices, your relationships, and most importantly, on how God is shaping your life even in the most challenging moments. Are you valuing the blessings you already have, or like Esau, trading them for fleeting satisfactions? Are you allowing God to transform your flaws into strengths, as he did with Jacob? More importantly, how can you apply these lessons to your life today? Maybe it's time to seek reconciliation with someone, just as Jacob did with Esau. Perhaps you need to dig new wells of faith, like Isaac, or build an altar of gratitude, recognizing God's presence even in unlikely situations. Whatever it is, don't let these lessons stay in the realm of ideas. Put them into practice. Believe me, when you start aligning your life with God's plan, extraordinary things begin to happen. Now, I want to challenge you. Why not take the first step today? It could be an honest prayer, asking for forgiveness, or even an act of faith to show that you're ready to trust in God's plan. Small actions can lead to great transformations, just as we saw in the story of Isaac and Jacob. If you've made it this far, it's because this message touched you in some way. So don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave your like. Here you'll find more stories to inspire, challenge, and strengthen your faith. And look, there are more videos appearing on your screen right now. Don't miss the chance to keep learning and growing. May God bless your journey. See you next time.